Welcome to the Ancient Coin Podcast with Berk, a show about ancient coins from the viewpoint of a seasoned professional with nearly 30 years' experience. Here's Berk and Mike Nodelman on the Ancient Coin Podcast.
And that sound of the gong means that it's time for the Ancient Coin Podcast with Berk. I'm Mike Nodelman.
I'm Berk.
And a quick background to this podcast. Aaron and his dad own a pretty well-known coin shop where I work as a numismatist, but I've always wanted to learn more about ancient coins. And since I have two, if not more, of the foremost authorities on ancient coins in the U.S. right there at the office, I asked Aaron if he'd teach me about ancient coins. So through these podcasts, we have an opportunity where you can learn with me, and they're available on our website at hjbltd.com so that you can access them at your leisure. On today's episode of the Ancient Coin Podcast, we have yet another pearl for our necklace of wisdom from Aaron, which hopefully makes you a smarter coin buyer. We'll look at someone who wasn't quite so smart as we examine another Doofus purchase. But before we do all of that, Aaron is going to take us through some of the auction highlights from big sales over the past 2 weeks. Aaron, what was it that really grabbed your attention this week?
Well, NAC is finally posted. And so that's Numismatic Ars Classica. They will be running their auction May 30th and 31st out of Zurich, Switzerland. Their offices are actually in London, but they run their auctions. They have several offices, one in Italy as well, but they run all their auctions out of the Switzerland office. So their big auction is May 30th and 31st. And the first catalog is primarily one guy's collection, and it's primarily a lot of gold, Roman gold in it and things like this of this nature. The second day is kind of the mammoth of the sale that has all these amazing coins in it. As far as past sales, the Poise auction was, we talked about that in last show. That was very strong, did very, very well. I was shut out, which doesn't happen too often.
That's one to mark on the calendar.
Yeah, exactly.
In a bad way.
Very, very strong prices. Very, very strong prices. Nomos is coming up as well, but I didn't profile them on this particular podcast. So getting into NAC, there's two coins I want to talk about. There's amazing coins in this. If you most of you won't be able to afford these coins, but it's definitely a history lesson in numismatics to go and view all of these coins, because there's some coins that you'll have never seen before. The first one I want to talk about is a fantastic Sicilian coin, and this is the Argentum, produced in Sicily, which has an eagle grabbing a hare in its talons, and the obverse, and on the reverse it has a crab with a fish below, and then you have a small shell as well. And this is kind of, the artist was basically trying to show life in this Sicilian city at the time. So you have the local fish that were caught and probably not only eaten there but exported as well, I'm sure. And it's just a fantastic coin. There's their estimate is, most of the estimates in the sale are quite high. This one, they have it estimated at 250,000 Swiss francs. The last one that sold that I saw sold for 110,000 hammer.
Now, 250,000 Swiss francs is what in freedom units?
So the last time I checked, the Swiss franc was at about $1.09. It may have dropped a little bit beyond that because the dollar has gotten stronger, but it's almost close to, you're going to lose about 7-8%.
Okay.
Against the dollar. But on top of it, NAC has kind of a hefty buyer's fees, one of the highest in the industry. I think they're at 23%.
Now, can I make a comment on this coin in particular?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So this tetradrachm is a really, it's interesting in the fact that you've got an eagle who apparently has grabbed a jackrabbit. And I mean, the detail is just, it's so sharp. There's a signature. Right. There is, you see all the feathers. When you talk about this is a high-end coin that most people will never be able to afford. I think the importance of looking at these, though, is that when you see what it is that is in the exceptional coins, then you kind of get a feel for what you can look for in the more mundane coins that make your coins better. But then you've got the sea life on the other side with, the fish and the crab and a shell in there. This coin has like no splits in the flan. It's really well centered. It's got a nice beaded border. It's just a really, really attractive coin.
And as they mentioned in their description, the artist is trying to convey the sky, the land, and the waters in this design, which is really what they're trying to do here. There's another design with this coin that has a Scylla, which is a sea monster, which is even rarer than this one, but the fish one hardly ever comes up. And for those of you who can't afford the silver tetradrachm, they do have this issue in bronze. You won't have it with the fish, but you will have it with the eagle and the hare on the obverse. And you can pick up one. I think I saw one in our stock the other day for like $300. So they're not very expensive. Again, going to bronze coins with any of these rarities is the way to go if you want to actually get the type from the city per se. So I don't know how much this coin's going to bring, being that the most expensive one brought 110,000, but it was many years ago. This one's not much better than that one. I would think it's going to bring 250, but who knows? It might bring 3, might bring $500,000. Depends on how much somebody's going to want to spend on it, but it's going to bring big money regardless. The second one I want to talk about, and I've mentioned it before when we did our Eredmars study, is the gold Brutus gold Eredmar. So, Mike, if you bring that one up.
I've got that.
Awesome. So there are only 3 gold Eredmars in existence. This is the issue done by Brutus. If we watched one of our earlier podcasts, we did a whole talk on these things. And these were struck with the silver dies in 43, 42 BC. And if you remember, Brutus helped assassinate Julius Caesar in 44 BC. So there are only 3 of these in existence. One is in a German museum, which some think are fake, think that one is fake. Then there was the one that sold at Roma in 2020, or I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, it was 2020. You're correct. Yep, January.
And it sounded weird to me for some reason. I don't know why.
You were bidding on that when we were interviewing.
Yeah, right. I was bidding on it. I was the underbidder on it. It sold with the juice. It sold for $4.2 million.
So close.
And no one knows who bought that one. I even talked to Roma, and they don't know. It was bought through representation. That's why, again, I don't want to plug myself, but too much, but using a dealer for bidding on high-end, especially high-end material, protects you from having anyone know that you own the coin. So even the auction house has no idea who owns that coin because it was bought by a dealer on commission. So as long as that dealer doesn't tell anybody, nobody will ever know where it went. Same thing happened with the 1933 gold eagle. That was the St. Gaudens piece. That was but no one knew his name until it went up for auction.
Right.
And they kept that a secret for almost 20 years.
Well, not only that, but the inverted Jenny, the stamp, was also his.
Right. And so until he went to auction with it, no one had a clue who owned that. So that's actually a credit to the people that were representing him to keep it under wraps for that many years.
I think it's interesting to note that with this coin, it's estimated to go for $750,000, and yet it's scratched and hold.
It will be the most expensive hold coin ever to sell.
Probably.
That is without a doubt. So what makes this coin even more interesting is that it was actually has a pedigree going all the way back to the 1930s when it was brought to the British Museum, I think in 1932 or 1935. It was my father actually bought this coin on commission for Barry Fierstein, who was his client at the time, in I think it was in 2004, something like that, when NAC sold the coin. We bought the coin for Fierstein then for 120,000 Swiss francs. 4 years later, he sold his collection at NAC, and I think it brought something like 320,000 Swiss francs, maybe more. And now they say 750,000. I think it's going to bring between 2 and 3 million Swiss francs hammer, not including the commission. And could it go for 4 million? Sure. What makes this one even more interesting, even though it's got the hole, is that this was on display at the British Museum from the last time I showed up at NAC until just last year.
Well, it's also called to attention that there is a huge cross section of people that are interested in one way or another in this coin, because virtually anybody who's read Shakespeare knows the tale of Julius Caesar, and here's the coin that that actually commemorates the moment.
Right. And there's only around 80 silver Eredmars in existence. So there's only 3 of the gold. One is possibly fake. The one in Roma may or may not have issues down the road because some believe that the pedigree isn't sound. But that's for court someday to maybe decide. This one is as clean as can be. It was auctioned. This will be the 3rd time it was auctioned. It was on display at the British Museum. It's been known since the 30s. It's been published in a lot of works.
Easily identifiable.
It's about as clean a pedigree as you can get, and there's only 3 of them. So if you think about the one that's in the museum already, is it real? Is it fake? Doesn't matter. You're not going to get your hands on it anyway. The one that's sold for 4.2 million, who knows when that will come up, and maybe it has legality issues down the road. Then there's this one. This one could eventually, it's possible, be the only one in existence in private hands.
Yeah, it could end up with a 1933 double eagle situation.
It could. Maybe not now when it sells, but 10 years down the road,
sure,
anything's possible.
Especially with today's legal climate.
Right. So it's going to be a hell of a sale. There are amazing coins in this sale, and again, doesn't matter if you can't afford it. I would even go and watch the sale live because you're going to see some amazing amounts of money being spent on coins, and we'll see if this breaks the market or not. So my father mentions this all the time that in the I think it was in the 80s, the ancient coin market, it was at an all-time height, and then there was one auction that I think it was the Kunstfreud auction that broke the back of the market, and everything plummeted after that sale. So I don't think that's going to happen with this sale, but anything's possible.
Just when you think you've seen it all, you'll see something you haven't seen before. So I never put too much, stock in traditionally this is what's happened, because that's usually what doesn't happen.
Right. So, so moving on, let's go on to the Doofus purchase, Mike.
No. Okay. So this is your Macedonian kingdom, Alexander the Great.
So I've mentioned Alexander the Great before in this podcast many times, haven't I?
Just a couple of times.
And what's one thing that I've always mentioned about when it comes to slabbing and Alexander the Great? And the one thing I always try to focus on is the fact that there are good artists and there are bad artists.
Yes.
There's good dies, there's bad dies. That die state doesn't really matter so much all the time when it comes to buying ancient coins. That's why I have a problem. And people always they always freak out and think that I hate NGC. I don't hate NGC. What I don't like, I don't like the star designation,
right?
Because I feel that people pay a premium for it, and it's not necessarily, yes, you could say this is a great coin for the die state, but in my opinion, this coin is subpar artistically. It's stiff. The Zeus is nice, but I've seen
He's
far
ripped.
better style. This is one of the more common issues. It's not even lifetime. This is a posthumous issue of Amphipolis after death. And it brought $9,500. That doesn't include the buyer's fees. This actually brought 11,000 and some change.
Okay, now wait a minute. To be fair, okay, this coin is very well centered, very well struck, and is your Alexander the Great. However, I understand what you mean, because on the back, or the reverse of the coin, the Zeus with the Nike, or that's not a Nike. It's what is the bird? The
Eagle.
Or
Eagle.
with an eagle. I'm sorry. So the Zeus with the eagle and the signature and all that other kind of stuff is just kind of seems like it's thrown on there, like it's not particularly attractive.
Mm-hmm. But the bottom line is that Alexander the Great of this type is not rare. They're not impossible to find. And the most that I could see this coin selling for in our stock would be $2,500. That would be the most that I would charge for a coin like this. They had a starting price of $2,000. They had an estimate of $4,000 to $6,000. They have the estimate based on plastic. It has no bearing on the coin whatsoever. Because if this wasn't in a plastic with a star, they would not have put a $4,000 to $6,000 estimate on it. So now they are pricing it based on plastic alone. Has nothing to do with the coin anymore.
And to be fair, I can see where NGC gave this coin a star, because the coin on its own merits is just hammered. It's phenomenally struck.
I agree.
But that doesn't necessarily create value.
But let me go a step further, is that there are more artistic dies with Alexander. And I think that you have to, with a coin that is as common as this coin is, that you can find anywhere in the market, I think that you have to take the star designation away and focus more on the artistic quality, when you can find tons of Alexander the Great with this kind of die state, but you're not going to find ones that have the same artistic quality. So why not be a little bit pickier and not base it on the die state alone in this situation?
I understand. You're saying that this is just based really pretty much on strike, and people need to stop overvaluing that star. I think that's what it is they put too much credence into what a star brings to the table.
The star is being exploited, and people are buying into it, but the only ones that are actually winning or is going to be the auction house, the owners of the coin, NGC, because obviously a price coin like this goes for this price. Everybody starts looking at their Alexanders and they say, oh, my Alexander looks like that, and they submit it to NGC. That's more submissions. But then the chance of getting a star again is just gambling again. You may or may not get it. It's very if you'll get it. There's coins that I've been at shows and people say, why does that have a star? And we don't know. And there's other coins that we say that should have had a star, but it doesn't have a star. So I think it's picky. They're picky when they want to be picky and not picky when they don't want to be. And I think it's very inconsistent, but then the price is paid based on what Heritage had the estimate at. It was based only on the plastic itself. And if, Mike, I hate to do this to NGC, but if you go to the presentation, Mike.
Oh, okay. Hold on a second, because before we get there, because I want to kind of make a counterpoint, because I don't want to carry water for NGC. I don't do that, but I also want to say that this I think is important to kind of grasp as a collector, that NGC in their star designation on this coin is purely talking about the way the coin is struck and the detail in the coin. And when you look at this coin, Zeus is ripped. You look at the staff that he's, it's like the detail is there. The detail is everywhere on this coin. Does that create value in this coin? No. So I think the fault doesn't lie with NGC as much as it lies with the people that blindly pay money for what NGC says, with them misinterpreting what NGC is saying about this coin. That's just my opinion on it.
Well, I can say that, they gave it a mint state 5 out of 5, 5 out of 5. There are people paying big money for just mint state 5 out of 5, 5 out of 5 coins. It didn't need a star. To me, the star designation, because if it's making a coin worth 4 or 5 or 6 times what it's worth, then why does an NGC start to guarantee their own coins? Because if they're going to allow someone, if they know full well, and I know they know this, that if somebody's going to pay a huge premium for starred coins, and if they don't go back through the same avenues, meaning sell it through Heritage or through Stacks or through one of the telemarketers that might be able to get that price again, because I guarantee you if they go to now sometimes CNG and other auction houses will leave the star coins in the slabs and offer it in their sales, and they'll get the stupid prices. But most of us are left shaking our heads about it.
Right.
But I just think that if that much money is being spent on what they designate as a star or whatever grade they put on it, then why don't they put some of their own skin in the game?
Well,
it's time for them to put some skin in the game.
Okay, but
they don't get to lose anything.
You understand the point I'm making, right? I mean, it makes sense, right? You don't even have to agree with it as long as you think it makes sense. I think that in the modern coin world, this is like buying the MS-70 Silver Eagles.
Yes.
I just think it's the same. That there's an assumption that is being made. Yeah, well, here's the thing is that with certain coins it matters. And with certain coins, it doesn't. And there's what I'm trying to talk about. With this coin, I don't think that the 5 out of 5 and the star matters. Not to the value of the coin.
Right.
That's all.
Well, I mean, just to go back on the star, I mean, this is in the U.S. market. We've got, Mike and I know Mike Prince at our office is building an amazing collection of U.S. for a guy, and Mike is reviewing every single coin. He has target grades for each coin that he's doing for the several sets that he's building for the client. He has no pluses. He will not sell him a plus coin because the prices are so erratic that he doesn't want to see his client lose money down the road. And so even in the US market where you have kind of a BS designation that doesn't make sense, and that's in a very controlled market like the United States coin market. So, but in ancient coins, they put a star on there and somebody pays. There's another coin I could have made a Doofus purchase as well that people were blowing up in the Facebook groups about, and it was a Naxos Obel that they said somebody on Facebook mentioned that one of the graders at NGC said that it was better than 90% or 95% of the coins that they had seen of that type. But small little, and we'll do a little thing on fractions, but fractions are literally a few millimeters big. They are generally the cheapest ancient silver coins that you can buy. This one went for over $10,000, and it wasn't a 10,000, but they started, and it brought 10 grand also in heritage. So it's now, I almost made a Doofus purchase, but then I went back and I looked to see when the last time it sold, and the last time it sold in a Nomo sale for 3,000 Swiss francs, which was also a crazy price.
Mm-hmm.
And so the fact that it sold raw for 3,000 and now it's selling for 11,000. Yes, it was a stupid price, but it's still better than 90% of the ones you see. So yes, it's still a Doofus purchase, but to me, this Alexander is completely out of. I mean, this is the type of coin you can pick up anywhere.
Right.
And this is where I get with Athens coins, and same thing I've mentioned. Like, don't buy coins like this in auction. Buy them out of a dealer stock. You will find them. You just have to spend a little bit of time.
Well, that little bit of legwork, pays for itself. It really does.
It's insane to me. It's insane to me. And the only ones that are laughing is Heritage and the sellers. Or it could be all just Heritage.
Sure.
Sometimes they own a lot of their own coins.
But I think
who
that
the heck knows?
I think that it's really important that we made the point that we did, and that as an educational service that we kind of push that fact that look, don't overvalue what these things are giving to you. There is a value to it, but understand where it adds value, and only try to use it for that.
And don't buy common coins in auction. Don't.
That was
don't
a couple.
Do it.
All right, that was a couple of episodes ago.
It was, but I got to say it again because people keep doing it.
Yes,
but they're not watching the show, so whatever.
No. So let's show them what you did.
Yeah, what I did, which again, I'm not trying to take and I didn't even do a Mint State one. I did an XF Star, but my point of this was obviously this was an Attic Athens coin, 5 out of 5, 5 out of 5, and my point in this image is to say it doesn't matter what the coin is anymore. You're only buying the plastic, and this is truly what I'm talking about. It means nothing about what's inside that piece of plastic anymore, and that to me is taking all the fun out of collecting. So I think that if it was me and I could control the world today, I would say NGC, take away the star designation because it's being exploited and people are getting ripped off. So unless those star designations can show that they are going to hold their value for the next 20 years, then, which I don't think you can guarantee that, I'm going to keep selling raw coins at the right prices and not gouge anybody. Even if I get a coin with a star designation that I buy in a collection, I'm cracking it out. I'm going to crack it out. Because I don't run an auction house, and I understand like when C&G puts one in with a star and somebody spends a stupid amount for it, they're an auction house. They're trying to make their commissions. I understand if Heritage needs to do that because I want to make their commissions. But to me, that designation is just leading lambs to slaughter.
Wow. Getting a little dark on us, aren't you?
It is what it is.
Okay.
I can't.
Well, I mean, look, fairly, like I've always said with US stuff, it's like you have to learn the coins. It just comes down to it. There's no shortcuts. There's no, they're just not. And having guidance and having somebody who can help you is always a good idea.
Yeah, absolutely. And what if NGC puts a star on something that shouldn't be a star? Because there's always these gray areas, right, with slabbing, and somebody pays an astronomical amount of money for that. When it happens in U.S. coins, we sell it off to dealers that like don't mind screwing their clients because they're only selling the plastic to them.
Telemarketers.
Yeah. And so, there's people who sell those types of problem coins, but legitimate dealers don't.
No. Legitimate dealers are supposed to protect their clients from coins like that.
Right. Exactly. So, I can't in whatever. I've talked about this on Blue in the Face, but unfortunately, the Doofus purchases keep seeming to be starred coins, and it's not out of design. It's just that they're the easiest ones to find.
Okay, so they're just easy marks. It's not a knock on NGC. It truly is not. It's not. It's not a prejudice either.
It isn't. No, again, I don't have a problem with NGC. I do have a problem with the way that the slabs are being exploited.
Sure.
That's all.
And that's a perception thing.
Maybe.
Well, look, it behooves them not to, right?
Right.
If it creates business, they're kind of like slow to correct that.
Well, and if the Chinese are buying it all up, you might say, well, the hell with them. They're communists anyway. So what do we care? So but I don't think it's fair for any, it's not a good way to build an industry.
No, certainly not.
It's just not a good way to build an industry with trust, so and again, I wish NGC had some skin in the game. When do they take a loss? When they make a mistake? When do they take a loss? They don't. They get it. They get to win fully. They get criticized, but they don't lose any money, not a cent. So, if I make a mistake, I got to pay for it. But if
Mm-hmm.
they make a mistake, somebody has to pay big for it, and there's no recourse.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. Doesn't seem fair to me.
I'm going to leave that one sit because I can't disagree
Fine
with
with
any of it. I just can't. So, shall we talk about the kingdom of Parthia?
Sure, why not? Let's do it.
Okay.
So, I wanted to pick an area, start picking areas of coinage like we did last time. We did Roman Republic. This time we're going to work on Parthia. There are a lot of areas of coinage that are inexpensive and a great way to start collecting ancient coins at a reasonable level. And the coins of Parthia are one of them. All of the coins of Parthia are generally done in silver and bronze. To date, there has never been a gold one ever found.
Mm.
So there are gold jewelry that were produced in ancient Parthia, but to date they never issued a coin in silver, in gold. And in fact, if you see one that's in gold, chances are it's going to be a fake. Now, as far as the history of Parthia, it's very, very interesting. So Parthia is actually is part of Iran. So this is ancient Iran
Or Persia.
or Persia.
This is the
And
precursor, right?
there was a semi-nomadic tribe that was called the Parni that actually came to power around 250. They started to move to the west, and the Seleucid Empire, which was run by one of the successors of Alexander the Great, was controlling this region at the time, and the Parni moved in there around 250 BC, and defeated them out, and by 247 BC had conquered the area and were thriving. There was a leader named Arsaces who actually led this tribe. And a lot of the coins after him were issued with the same name, because every king that who came into power had used that name going forward, as kind of like saying like Caesar or Augustus for the Romans. The the What I find really interesting about these coins is they were very good on horseback, and they fought against the Romans constantly. Brutus tried to go after them and knock them out. He was defeated. Julius Caesar was about to go in 44 BC, but we know what happened to him. He was assassinated. Augustus, or Octavian at the time when he was fighting the civil wars in Rome, kind of left Parthia alone. He was concentrating on the west, and by the time around the time of Augustus, he made peace with the Parthians, actually. But then around the time of Trajan in 113 AD, they were conquered again. And then they were in the time of Hadrian, they were given a little bit more leeway and took over the region again. And then eventually they were defeated by the Sasanian king at Ardashir or something like that in 224 AD. But if you go to the first slide, or the next slide, Mike,
mm-hmm.
and you hit the link, there's a really good and I've mentioned forum before on these podcasts, but they do a really good job, because there's a lot of individual collectors that produce these types of works, and this is all the silver denarii of the different emperors from basically the height of the Parthian Empire that was done beginning with Mithridates the First. And Mithridates actually did large tetradrachms as well that are very beautiful. And they're still not so expensive. You can pick one up for anywhere between $1,500 and $2,500 for a large silver tetradrachm. But most of these drams, they only run anywhere from $50 up to $250. So for a mint state one.
It's
So they're not
amazing.
real expensive.
It's amazing to me how consistent the design stayed over all those years.
Yeah. And if you can see, most of the time on the reverse, the figure has a bow. They were very accurate from horseback with their bows. They were feared by the Romans because of their accuracy with their bows from these horses.
And their speed, I hear.
And what?
And their speed, I hear.
And their speed as well. Yes. And so again, this is a great area to get into. Doesn't cost a lot of money. And I found out recently, Eric Goldstein, who used to be in the coin business, now he is a curator at Williamsburg. And he is a curator for their coins. He's a numismatic curator as well. He does saber swords as well there, but great mind for coins. And he was telling me recently, and I think he's working on it, or somebody was working on it, that some of the figures of the Parthians are wearing and have different things on their crowns and things like that. And basically what he was telling me is that somebody's writing a work that will describe the different badges and the meanings that they had, that they were actually showing some kind of tribute or a medal or something like this. So there's a lot still unknown about ancient numismatics to be uncovered. And it just takes a collector or academic to dive into it and to start to study all the great coins. And so I just find this a fascinating area that's not expensive. If you go to the next slide, Mike, there's a slide of bronze coins. They're not as pretty, obviously, because, they're bronze coins and they tend to be cheaper.
Yeah, they don't look quite as well struck, or if they were as well struck, they don't look as well preserved.
Right. So now this is this collector, and I believe, I don't want to take anything away from him, but his name is Doug Smith. He's the one who actually did this presentation, and so kudos to Doug for doing this. And then I want to go to the next slide, Mike. After that, that shows the coin of Trajan. Yeah.
Yes.
So I put this in here because this is where Trajan defeated the first time that anybody defeated the Parthians after they came into power in 113 AD. And here in 116 AD, you have Trajan showing Parthia and some of the other gods that were representation of areas that he defeated. And so remember, coins were propaganda. Coins were the ancient way of getting news out to the people. And so this is showing Trajan and his conquests. And what better place to do it on a large bronze coin where you have a lot of real estate to actually put a unique design in play.
Yeah, so he's telling the world that Armenia and Mesopotamia have now been put under our rule.
Exactly. So there's two books primarily that are used to catalog these. The first one came out in 1980. It's by David Selwood, and it was called The Introduction to the Coinage of Parthia. The second one is done by Fred Shore, called Parthian Coins and History, 10 Dragons Against Rome. That was published in 1993. Fred Shore's book's excellent. It's better than Selwood's. The problem is that they're both out. They're out of print. And in fact, the last time I talked to Fred Shore to see if he had any copies left, he didn't even have copies of his own book.
Sounds like something for the Newman Numismatic Portal.
Right.
If they could get that
Exactly.
on the portal, then, because
Yeah.
it's a really important place to have all kinds of information stored.
Right. And then our own, I like to call him our own because I see Mike Martz all the time. But there's a Mike in that last slide after the Sestercius. There is a link to Coin Week,
Yep.
and Mike Martz wrote a really good article on Parthia and Parthian coinage. So you can always check that out at coinweek.com.
And just a real quick look through the article. And yeah, it is there for you at coinweek.com/ancient-coins.
Right. So yeah, that's I just think it's a good area to collect. It's not expensive, and we can talk about those auction prices and coins that none of us can afford, but there are plenty of ancient coins that are affordable, and this is a great area to start with.
Yeah, and I think that, like I said, I think there's value in looking at the stuff that is high end, because then you kind of learn what the market likes and what the market expects.
Right. Exactly. So yeah, this is going to bring us to our Pearl of
Our
Wisdom,
Pearl
which
of Wisdom.
actually, yeah, which really has nothing to do with anything we talked about today.
Nope.
But it is definitely something that is important, whether you collect ancient coins, U.S. coins, any type of collectibles. Is you don't, and this happens all the time, is you don't want to leave your loved ones in the dark when it comes to your collection. You want to have some kind of direction for them. So, Mike, what's our Pearl of Wisdom?
Our Pearl of Wisdom is: don't leave your loved ones in the dark. Leave them guidance. So it's really important that, look, we're all going to meet our demise at one point, and none of us ever know when that's going to happen. But the fact of the matter is that it's going to, and nobody knows your coin collection like you do. And if you think about even another collector getting a hold of your collection and how they would look at things from a completely different perspective, think about things from the perspective of your loved ones who know absolutely nothing about these coins and want to honor you with, whatever they do with it. There's a book that is made for U.S. coins that's written by former Coin World editor-in-chief Beth Deischer, called Cash in Your Coins, selling the rare coins that you've inherited, which basically is a guidebook to go in a U.S. coin collection that has all sorts of things where you can mark and you can make notes about this. What I would say is you don't need anything that specific, but if you can just leave a couple of notes that say, this is what this is, this is why it's important, and this is why it's valuable, and this is why it's valuable to me.
Well, and I would even take it a step further, is if you have a will, put it in your will and pick out the dealer that you want to represent if your family doesn't want to own the coins anymore, own the collectibles anymore, whatever it is, make sure that whatever dealer, whoever, or auction house that you want them to go to, because they're going to take good care of them and make sure that you don't, lose, because I guarantee you that collector doesn't want it to show up in an estate sale or a fire sale. And you don't want to have the situation where I just saw recently that a lady bought a Roman marble, I think it was of Trajan or Nero, at a flea market for $23, and it was worth several $100,000, maybe even $1 million. And so,
and try and get away from the mindset of impounding your collection with your loved ones. It's like, look, if they don't collect, don't force them to keep it. Pass them on to another collector that'll actually enjoy them.
Right. And I can tell you, I've had several situations where I had a client recently who called us, and he said, Aaron, I'm going to die. I've got cancer. And he was an oncologist, and he knew he was going to die. And he said, I already talked to my wife, and you are going to get all the ancients, and Mike Prince is going to get all the US at Harlan Berk. You guys have always treated me well. You sold me all the coins. I know you'll take care of her. And what do you say to a dying man? You say, of course, we're going to take care of you like family. He passed away right before he was going to send us all the coins. Right before. And then we talked to the wife, and she says, oh, my lawyer says I should get tons of opinions. Now, this is already going against what the instructions of her husband said. Right. So, to date, I haven't seen the coins. I don't know where they're going to end up, or if I'll ever have a chance at them. And I've had situations where, like if you deal with somebody for long enough, that gentleman we worked with for 15 years at least, and I would consider him a friend. And so for a dealer, it's like not getting closure.
Yeah.
It really
you don't
like
get to say your goodbyes and that, but I think more important and something to think about is, yes, you definitely want to let your loved ones know where you want to go with it and how you want to do it, because one of the things I like about working at Berk is the fact that we like to place high-end coins into high-level collections, because at the end of the day, we end up getting them back and then we get to sell them again. So, I mean, it's a really cool cycle the way that it works, but it only works that way if you communicate.
Yeah, and if you think that you're going to leave it to the lawyers to decide, lawyers don't know anything about coins, just like your loved ones. They just see it as a commodity. And so they're not going to treat it the same way. And they are going to, in the end, they're just charging by the hour. So if there's no plan in place, you're just making money for the lawyers. And or, which we see all the time, family members fight when there's money involved. And so I've seen collections that are stuck in litigation for years because the owner didn't do the right thing. And these are big collections, obviously, $1 million plus collections where there was no will and they didn't even know they had the coins. And all it takes is one family member who decides that they're worth $1 million or $10 million or whatever, and wants to, and
they want to keep one coin out of it.
Whatever the case might be.
Yeah, it just throws a wrench in the whole thing.
I mean, I had a recent thing where a client, I was talking to the client. He then, he had passed away. He was a client of mine for 20 years. I was talking to him for months, and at the last minute, his mother and sister gave the collection to one of my competitors. And then what was really interesting is that one of the sisters got nixed from all decision making of the collection, and she wanted some of the pieces. So she came to me because she knew that her father was close to me, and I ended up buying coins for her in the auction without her family knowing. Wow. Just so she could own some of her father's coins.
Wow.
And I had to keep it a secret. And she spent like $7,000 or $8,000. I wasn't really I think I made $200-$300.
Sure.
But it wasn't about the profit. It was about, for me, it was about the closure of it, that I got to help out his daughter.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's just the stories we hear as dealers, it's insane. And so I always tell people, make sure you have a plan in place. I don't care what it is.
And do it today. Sure. Don't wait. Do it now, because you just never know. That's kind of the way it works. You just never know.
And I have some people, they tell me, oh, when I go, my family knows you're getting the coins. They know straight away. And they may say it, but they may not have it in writing.
Right. Or they may have forgotten.
Or they have forgotten it or whatever, And so, we tend to try to do right by the collectors that we worked with for years and years and years. And so, just you don't want me, the dealer, to buy it out of an estate sale on pennies on the dollar because somebody was stupid and put it in the wrong venue. It's to my advantage to buy your coins cheap. And so you don't want me to buy them cheap. Don't put them in a venue or have somebody put them in a venue where your loved one that spent all this time building a beautiful collection put them just to have them go for nothing. It just doesn't make sense.
So that was our Pearl of Wisdom. And so you got anything else for us tonight, Aaron? This has been an action-packed show. We had technical difficulties. We've had a couple of things come up, but everything seemed to go pretty well. Do you like the new artwork?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, it's cool. So thanks to our technical staff. Thanks to everybody who helps us put this together. And thanks to the people that are going to edit this afterwards. This is going to be great. For the Ancient Coin Podcast, I'm Mike Nodelman.
I'm Aaron Berk.
So we will talk to you in a couple of weeks on the next episode of the Ancient Coin Podcast. So long, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Ancient Coin Podcast with Aaron Berk. We'll return with another episode soon. Meantime, you can join our private group on Facebook. Just go to facebook.com and search the Groups tab for Ancient Coin Podcast Discussion Group and ask to join. There you can become part of our community, where we share and discuss ancient coins, as well as the show, the ancient coin market, auctions, or just to give our own opinions on things in order to learn together. Join Aaron and Mike again soon for the next episode of the Ancient Coin Podcast with Aaron Berk.